Hey y'all.
Hey fam, welcome to RJ Verified, a new podcast on all things reproductive justice. Miss Jones, let them know what's the goal of RJ Verified.
All right then, Dr. Amber. Yeah, we have our own personal Dr. Amber. RJ Verified seeks to transform how we understand and advocate for reproductive justice by centering the experiences and voices of Black women and communities of color. And one of the things about this is that not only when we're talking about centering the experiences of Black women, we're just talking about like the entire spectrum of who and what and how Black women show up. And that's very important, especially in times like now. And we do this through storytelling, and in-depth cross-movement conversations and expert analysis. And I love that, which is like really great that we have Dr. Amber doing this with us today, because expert analysis is so important in our work. We aim to educate, empower, and inspire listeners to engage with reproductive justice as a framework that addresses systemic inequalities impacting health and well-being. So that means we're going to be talking to a lot of different people about a lot of different stuff.
So in other words, we're going to be getting to it.
We're going to be getting to it.
So say a little bit more. When we say cross-movement conversations, what do we mean by that?
So when we're talking about cross-movement work, we're really talking about work that intersect. So we're talking about different movements. So you have movement work where people are, maybe we're looking at the justice system, right? And so we're looking at all of the harms that happen inside that space and how certain populations of people are more impacted than others. And so for that reason, we've got to look to deconstruct that system. So what happens is you have people doing that movement work, but they're doing it kind of like singularly, right? Like they're literally really focusing on the thing that's happening. Black people are being imprisoned at a higher rate than others. And so what's important is that when you look deep into the criminal justice system and you look at how the criminal justice system have always been used to harm Black folk or other non-white folk, that centers it right inside of reproductive justice, because reproductive justice is a framework that was built on human rights and social justice. Right. And so when we bring that in, then we're looking at the entire experiences. So we're just not looking at that one crime. We're looking at the entire experiences of Black folk and how we have had to show up in this system, right? And so when we come together to do this work, then it broadens the way in which we do the work, right? It expands the work that we're doing. But most importantly, it brings more players into the game.
Correct.
So it's kind of like that thing, looking at where the work axis,
All right. So what we're trying to say, fam, is that reproductive justice is not a single issue movement. We like to quote Audre Lorde
all the time
here. We don't live single issue lives. And so reproductive justice is really about addressing all of the intersectional things that impact us. As Dr. Jones just so eloquently stated. And I love being able to be a part of that from the research standpoint, because so many of the things you just mentioned in terms of the criminal system, we see these numbers, we see these statistics that literally get disseminated around the world. They create these stereotypes about who people think that Black people are. And those numbers really don't accurately account for the lived realities of everybody involved in RJ, which is why the storytelling that we do is so important. And I'm sure everybody can think of that from their own lives, is you can never know just by looking at a person. A statistic or what we see from a person really just captures the iceberg of their story and what they've been through and what we have going on with them. And so without Black researchers to safely hold and get Black stories so that we have the full picture of what accounts for the numbers, what accounts for the circumstances, because it's not just enough to say there are this amount of criminal interactions or there are this amount of new HIV diagnoses among Black women, and people automatically jump to risky behaviors.
Right.
But what are the circumstances that led people to engage in these things that they need to do to survive, but also that put them at risk for contracting HIV or for whatever legal interactions or whatever it is. And so those are some of the things that I'm looking forward to having more conversations about in RJ Verified.
Right. We're really going to dig off. We're going to really dig into, we're going to really dig into those conversations, because really those are, like what you just said, is exactly why we founded the Afia Center, because we wanted to talk about what brought us to HIV, what led us to HIV, because we were really clear that if you change the circumstances that people live in, the behavior automatically change, right? And so that was really important to us. And as you said that, and we're definitely going to dig deep into this, because yesterday I was looking at social media and they talked about one of the young men who escaped from Angola.
Mm-hmm.
And many, many years ago, his mother was killed by, I don't know if it said her boyfriend, her husband, or whatever, but she was killed.
Mm-hmm.
And here we find ourselves these many years later, how that boy not being mothered, and by that very that person that was a part of her life, taking her life and then probably being taken away, and how that impacted these children who probably would have had a different outcome. So it's those kind of things when you look at what that young man grew up with and grew into, and how all of those things impacted his outcome.
Absolutely.
And so that storytelling piece. So anyway, y'all get this later. I'm just letting you know that these are the kind of conversations that we're going to have. So right there's your connection with the justice system or the prison system, or however we want to look at it, and RJ, because just like RJ states that we have the right to parent, our children have the right to be parented.
Yes.
You see, and so we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So I'm super excited. Yeah, Dr. Amber.
So y'all heard it here first. RJ Verified is going to tackle a lot of big questions, a lot of difficult conversations, and a lot of conversations that aren't being heard, as you just heard us discuss. These include things like, what does reproductive justice mean for Black communities? How do we fight for policies that truly reflect equity and liberation? And then how do we center our own stories as Black people in this movement for the change we need to see? So hold tight. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with you.
Soon. We want you to stay tuned and just be ready when we drop. We know that you're going to be growing, you're going to be gaining information that you're going to need to not only advocate for yourself, but also advocate for your community, advocate for your people, advocate for your folk. And so what we just looking to work together for a world where everybody can live with dignity, autonomy, and justice. So check us out. We'll see you soon.